I want you to take a moment to relax, get yourself into a calm place where you can meditate for a little bit. What I want you to do is think about what makes you, you. What, for example, are you really excited about right now? What are you looking forward to? What are you hopeful about? What are your passions and your dreams? Think also about what are you afraid of? What are you worried about right now? What is stressing you out? What are the hard things you're going through in life right now? As you think about these things, you're getting a better sense of who you are. Now I want you to, for a second, consider someone other than you. It could be a friend, a roommate, a family member. Think about one specific person. Now think about what makes them them. What are their passions? What are their dreams? What do you think gets them up and going in the morning? What do you think is their struggle right now? What are they stressed out about? What makes this individual unique and special? Now, the reason this is important is you as a speaker must be able to see your audience members as individuals with specific needs. The ability to speak is not about you as the speaker. It's about the audience. Without an audience, giving a speech would be pointless. You might as well be out in the woods talking to yourself. So to be an effective speaker, you need to attune yourself to your audience. What are their passions? What are their dreams? What are their needs? What are they struggling with at this time? Good speakers are able to connect with their audience so that they can provide their audience with information that is useful for their lives. Our goal then this semester is to be audience-centered speakers. So rather than speaker-centered speakers, our goal is to focus on the audience. This is where you consider throughout the entire process what the needs are of your audience members. This means when you're trying to choose your topic, when you're writing your speech, and even while you're delivering your speech and afterwards, you're thinking the whole time, what does this audience need and how can I provide that for them? Right? You might consider doing things like seeking common ground with your audience. You might be sure to respect differences because you're not going to be exactly like your audience, and consider what feedback they're giving back to you. Now, here's just a quick example to show you how important this is. Imagine you were a vegetarian and you were giving a speech trying to convince other people to try the vegetarian lifestyle. But you knew that a large part of your audience members worked at a meat production factory. If you went in there and just gave a moral message about the importance of morally being a vegetarian, it's not going to go over well because you have not connected to the needs and the views and the values of your audience. So in order to be persuasive in this situation, you must first put yourself in your audience's shoes and think through what steps would be needed for them to reach the same decision that you have reached. So our goal is to be audience-centered speakers. One of the ways we do this is by conducting audience analyses. This is where we take time before the speech to get to know our audience. Now, in this class, we might do something more formal where I give you time in class to go around and ask audience members questions. You might even send out a survey or do something even more particular like that. But in general, what I do when I'm giving a speaking event is I just make sure I show up there early and I spend some time talking to a few of the key audience members. The other thing I do is I email whoever reached out to hire me to give this speech, and I ask them some of these general questions, trying to figure out or at least get a sense for who's going to be in the audience. And it changes from time to time and from day to day. For example, I have to teach slightly different in my morning classes than I do in my afternoon classes, because my morning students typically are well rested and ready to go for the day, whereas my afternoon students have just had lunch, they're a little bit lethargic, they're ready for a nap, as am I, right? So we adapt our message according to our audience needs. Here are a couple of things for you to consider when it comes to doing an audience analysis. So the first thing you want to do is consider, who is my audience? Who am I trying to address here? And in some situations, it's going to be the people right in front of you. But if you're the president giving a speech, your audience is not just the people right in front of you. Your audience is the entire nation, and particularly those who you're trying to convince to vote for you. right? So an audience analysis should help you understand who the audience is, where they've come from, what they already know, what they need to know, what their attitudes are, what their beliefs are, what sort of concerns are going on in their mind right now. So we're not going to walk through all of these, but I want you to consider, for whatever topic you are choosing, what does my audience already know? What do they need to know? How are they going to care about this topic? Another big part of this audience analysis is knowing why your audience is there. You are going to write a different speech depending on why your audience came to your speech. For example, an audience that came to your speech because they were interested in the topic allows you to go into more detail and just have fun with that topic. But maybe you're at a speech with an audience who are compelled to be there. They have to be there, sort of like in class, right? You might have to do a little bit more extra work to convince your audience first that they should be interested in your topic. Because if they're there because they have to be, they may not already be interested in your topic. So understanding why your audience is there helps you to adapt, to know how to focus your time to be more effective. A key part of this is also knowing what they already know. Nobody likes to be talked down to. So if you go in and give a speech on a topic that your audience already knows everything about, they're not going to enjoy sitting there while you're telling them what they already know. At the same time, if you go in and talk about the topic using huge words and talking over their head, they're not going to get anything out of your speech, and they're probably going to leave not liking your topic. So you have to find the balance. Know what your audience already knows and be able to give them just enough that they're interested and gaining something out of your speech. You also do want to consider your audience interests. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you should only talk about things that they like, right? I enjoy soccer. But that doesn't mean that my speakers, those speaking to me, should only talk about soccer. There are times when I need people to tell me things that I don't want to hear. And you as a speaker might have to tell your audience things that they don't want to hear. So the key is to be able to articulate to your audience what's in it for them. What do they get out of it? So every topic you choose, make sure you can clearly in your mind tell yourself and then tell your audience what they should get out of listening to you. Attitudes are another important aspect of this. Just like that example with vegetarian. If you go in to give a speech with people who are already have positive attitudes about being vegetarian, but maybe they're just not committed to it yet, you're going to be able to talk about things slightly differently than if you go into an audience where they have bad attitudes about the vegetarian lifestyle. So knowing what their attitudes are help you to prepare the right type of speech. And values are also important. Remember, a value is something that we perceive as being worth our time or not worth our time. So something we perceive as being good or bad, which is different than a moral. Remember, morals are things that we perceive as being right or wrong. Values are just good or bad. You can perceive something as being good, whereas somebody else can perceive it as being bad, and you can still both be moral individuals. Sometimes we have these universal values, things that most people tend to agree with. Let's take freedom as an example. Most people tend to like the idea of freedom. But what freedom looks like is very different for each individual. So those would be our cultural values or our smaller, lower level values. Being able to tap into these different levels of values helps you to be able to use terminology that helps your audience to get on board with you. So our goal this semester is to be audience-centered speakers by taking the time to really care about other people as we are thinking about what topic to choose, as we're thinking about how we write our speech, as we're giving our speech, and even after our speech. Your whole focus should be on who is my audience, what does my audience need, how can I help my audience solve that need.